So me and the dog today. We'll see how long the dog stays around. He's alive. See, he's alive. um, Hi, yes, hi. I'm gonna make a video, see, and you're gonna be in it at least for a while. Um, you're so cute. So obviously this is the other One Piece Father's Day one. This is the other half of the Father's Day video for One Piece, the post time skip fathers. Rules still apply. They're either a father to a very important character in the arc, or they are a father to a very important backstory setup in the case like this. Like I'll talk about Law's father in this, and I'll talk about the dog sneezes anymore. The dog wants out. Really? I just started. Come here. Come on, why don't you want to stay in here longer? He's like, 'cause it's a Father's Day video and you're a mom. Here's. Okay. I'll let you out. Come on. Go out. Yeah. Rules, major father in the story in like regards to the timeline, in like regards to the arcs and such, like, Kiros and King Riku are in this, of course, from the Dressrosa arc. We, of course, have Senior Pincus. This, I did not forget him this time. We got Beige Capone down here later, or Capone Gang Beige. We got Pound in here. We got Kaido. And I am going to try to finish this out with actually a good father. Because unfortunately, last video I had to end it out with a bad father. I had to end it with Lookout the Third, who's just nothing but a jerk who doesn't care about his own son. And in this video, I'm actually going to end on Kozuki Oden, even though we technically learned that Kaido is a father before we learn about Kozuki Oden a little bit, or like we learned, well, let me rephrase it. We learned that Kaido was a father after Kozuki Oden, but I want to talk about a good father first, so we'll go with Kozuki Oden last. I want to end on a good father. And I actually waited until after the most recent chapter that came out, because this, what was it, 1015, 16, I think, 1016, something like that. And then they went on a break that was going to be over the same weekend as Father's Day, so I'm just like, okay. And I wanted to wait and read that chapter to see if they mentioned anything else about Kaido and Yamato's past. They got the two of them getting ready to fight, and we saw that at the end of the chapter, but we really didn't get anything else about, like, reveal something more about, more about their relationship beyond the fact of Yamato despises their father. Okay, so top of the list, first kind of father that we're introduced to throughout the course of the post-time skip is Neptune, or King Neptune, of the Ryugu Kingdom. He is, of course, the father of Fukaboshi, Ryoboshi, Mamboshi, and Shirahoshi. He is, of course, the king of Fishman Island. We are introduced to him via the Straw Hats, get invited to the palace by the princes, and then, of course, we see him as the giant king that they have. And he was once a very great fighter. He's still very strong. He's just unfortunately kind of gotten a little bit older and is a little rusty in his old age. But he's still quite strong. We do see that in the course of the Fishman Island arc. He very much loves his children. He very much loved his wife, of course, in Otohime. Very devastated by her loss, of course, as was most of Fishman Island, beyond Horty Jones and his group. But most of the other fishmen were devastated by losing Otohime. Neptune, no difference there. No exception there. None of their children were either. And of course, we see in the Oden's flashback, we see him. Well, we see Neptune talking to Roger, and we see, we see young Charlie give like one of her prophecies about like the king will marry a carp, and then there will be a mermaid princess that she will be born in 8 years or something like that, and then she'll grow and everything. And of course, we know that ends up being Shirahoshi. The three princes aren't nearly as large as their father, but Shirahoshi is on the same size level as her father. He loves his children very much, and we saw this throughout the course of Fishbone Island arc. He kept her in the hard. He unfortunately had to keep, Neptune had to keep Shirahoshi in the hard shell tower. Unfortunately, since Otohime's death, because of Decken, Vanderdecken, and his aim fruit, whatever it was, that allowed him to always throw things at Shirahoshi because he touched her. Which, yeah, no, that's a stupid. In the right hands, that's a good power. In most cases, probably not, because you have to touch the thing. But moving on, we have that, and of course, Neptune is kind of a reference. Neptune Shirahoshi relationship is a little bit of a reference to the Little Mermaid, in regards to Disney kid, in regards to Neptune is a reference to King Triton, in the fact that he locks his daughter up for her own safety. And Shirahoshi is a reference to Ariel and the fact that she is very fascinated by the outside world. And she wants to go and see the outside world. She wants to see the surface. And although in their case, it's not because of, it is honestly because if she steps outside the hard shell tower, Vanderdecken will throw something at her and, kill her unless she agrees to marry him. But we do see in the Reverie arc, the little mini arc that we had there with Reverie, that we had, Shirahoshi and the royal family, Neptune and everything went to, Reverie, and Neptune was ready to protect her against, being shackled and made into a slave because of Sharlos and, Roswald and their family and everything. And then, of course, and insert reason again to show, Sharlos getting hit in the face by a, Melzigard with a bat. Why would I not have a reason to show that in this video too? I'll show it again later just because it's worth it. But of course, Neptune was willing to throw away what he had, this opportunity for the people in order to protect his daughter. He would fight against the celestial dragons in order to protect his daughter. Next father that we are kind of introduced to this also throughout the Fishman Island arc is Fisher Tiger. Now, I know that you're going to say that Fisher Tiger didn't have any biological children. As far as we're aware, he didn't have any other biological relatives that we are aware of. Him and Jimbei and such were kind of like sworn brothers and everything. But I put to you Koala. And the fact that Fisher Tiger was the closest thing to a father that she ever knew. We know Koala's backstory. She was a slave for most of her life until she was, I don't remember exactly how old she was, when Fisher Tiger raided Marie Joie, and he's the reason she was able to escape along with all the other slaves. But she had been a slave pretty much her entire life until she was, her and the rest, a ton of the other slaves, including the Boa sisters, escaped thanks to Fisher Tiger's raid and attack on Marie Joie. And then several years later, Fisher Tiger and the Sun Pirates, Jimbei and Arlong and everything, find, Koala on this island full of other slaves. And they're like, well, we want to help this girl get home, but we don't have the ability to do that. Do you think you could take her home? And of course, Koala is this little girl that she refuses to cry. She refuses to show any emotion that's not just a smiling, happy face that's supposed to keep her masters happy with her so she doesn't get beaten. And that's just disturbing and horrible in and of itself. And, they take her onto the ship. And of course, throughout the course of, trying to get her back to her island, I think it's called Full Shout Island or something like that. I don't remember where it is. I want to say it was in the West Blue, but if I'm wrong, I apologize. I don't think it was in the Grand Line or the New World, and I don't remember exactly where it was. As I said, I want to say the West Blue, but I'm sorry if I'm wrong. But they're taking her back there, and of course, throughout this, we see her, we see Fisher Tiger hating the way that she acts in regards to, oh, she made a mess, she'll do everything she can to clean it up. She'll spend all this time cleaning and everything, trying to keep the fishmen from being angry at her. Because, in her mind, it's like, okay, I'm technically not a slave anymore, and part of me knows that, but I can't break out of that habit, out of these stupid habits. And what Fisher Tiger does is he basically tells her it's okay to cry, because even at one point, like, Arlong, I think, slaps her or whatever, and, she refuses to cry, even though, like, any child normally that got slapped that way would have started crying, but she doesn't. And what Fisher Tiger does is he, of course, he drags her into the part of the ship, and he, warms up the iron, the the brand thing that they had that they used to brand, the other fishmen, that had been former slaves with, the mark of the sun to cover up the mark of the celestial dragon, the hoof of the dragon. And he burns that onto her back over where her, brand was. And he burns that there to cover it, and it helps start getting that healing process going for her. And we see by the time they do get her back to her island and to her mother, that Koala has gotten so much better. She's gotten better at being able to express emotions that are not just, please don't hurt me, please don't hurt me, I will smile, I will do what I'm supposed to. And and Fisher Tiger walks her back to her village, back to her mother. And this is another reason why I didn't really put Koala's mother in the Mother's Day video. Partially I forgot, but partially also because of the fact that her mother literally lets Fisher Tiger walk away after thanking him for bringing her back her daughter, who she has not seen in insert however many years. And she willingly, literally just doesn't even warn him about the fact that, yeah, the other people in the village made a deal to get Koala back. The Marines will show up here and we get my daughter back, but then they're going to attack you. And then, of course, Fisher Tiger leaves. And I don't think Koala learns until a while later about what had happened. At whatever point in time she ever found out about, read it in the newspaper or whatever. But she was, she was very thankful and everything to Fisher Tiger for saving her and for helping her start getting past those mental blocks that she had. And we start getting that. So I do put Fisher Tiger there for Koala. The next one is non-canon, but it's still fun, is Pons Fry, who is a giant that we meet in just like the little Z's Ambition arc or whatever. That's the tie-in to the film Zed, which I do like film Zed. Technically, I guess I can talk about Zephyr here a little bit, but first we're going to talk about Pons Fry. He is a giant. His daughter is Lillian Stomach. She is a giant that ate the, I think it's the mini fruit or whatever that allows her to shrink down to like small enough to fit inside of a bottle. And then she like floats inside of like glass bottles, and like that's how she how she travels most of the time when she's not with her father, and then she can of course go up to her giant size, and then she can also go to like kind of a human size, regular human size. And what ends up happening is the Straw Hats encounter Lily, and then she explains to them, well, my dad was my dad's a giant, and he got captured by the Marines because he likes to raid Marine ships and different areas like that are taking food to the Celestial Dragons, and he'll raid them and then give them back to people who need the food more than the Celestial Dragons do. And he also does volcano cooking, which already sounds awesome. And he uses basically like, he cooks over volcanoes. He takes this giant frying pan that he has, and he like puts the food in that, and then he cooks it over a volcano. Which I'm like, Sanji, go. Big Mom, I found your next husband. He's a giant and he can cook. Two things that she would probably like. But and they, the Straw Hats help Lily save her father from being, taking to be executed or taking to impel down, whatever the case was, wherever they're going to take him. And they get him, they help free him and everything. And that just kind of sets things up because we get introduced to the Neo Marines in this little mini arc. And then, it gets them set off to, at the end of the arc, they're set off to go and they end up at Punk Hazard. But I guess I can talk about Zephyr a tiny bit here. We see Zephyr throughout the course of film Zed. He left the Marines because his family was killed by a pirate that later on would be named into a warlord. We don't ever get the name of this pirate. The thought is that it was either, we know it wasn't Whitebeard, but and it's not one that became a Yonko. That was never stated, but it's that became a warlord. So the thought is, at the time, highly doubt it was Hancock. Don't think it was Crocodile. I don't think that it was Doflamingo because they were, they've been warlords for quite a while. Same thing with Mihawk. Same thing with Moria. So my answer to that is it was either Teach, Blackbeard, or it was Weevil, Edward Weavile, um, Whitebeard's son. Um, eh, and it was one of the two. That's my answer. It's like it was one of those two because they were the two that were made into warlords, and they were former pirates that we don't know a whole lot about their past beyond the little snips that we've seen. We know a tiny bit more about Blackbeard's past just because of other flashbacks that we've gotten in regards to the Odin flashback or in regards to a few other snips, but not that many, not that much else. But what ends up happening is, of course, you know, Zephyr, he had been a Marine trainer. He had trained a ton of Marines. He, trained, I think that stated that he trained Garp and Sengoku and Suru and a ton of these other Marines that led to training other Marines and everything. So he had a very powerful influence over that. But then his wife and son were killed. And then he hated that he lost them, of course. And then he goes and he becomes a trainer of more Marines and everything. And he, slowly gets better, and he has his other Marines, and then he builds the Neo Marines. That's just want to destroy all pirates. It doesn't matter. And they almost blow up half of the Grand Line. So, yeah. But we have Zephyr there. The next one is technically also introduced throughout the Fishman Island arc, is Milzigard's father. Don Quixote Milzigard's father. We do not know what Milzigard's father's name is. But yeah, he looks very ugly, just straight up ugly. We see him in a flashback. He tells Milzigard that the reason that your slaves are gone is because we made a deal with Jimbei, because he's a warlord and he didn't want to become a warlord unless we freed all of the fishermen's slaves. And now, they've all been freed and everything. And then, Milzigard goes down to Fishman Island and he tries to get his slaves back. And then, of course, this is when Otohime protects him. And then he becomes their ally and everything. And then, of course, flash forward to reason number 2 to show Milzigard hitting Charlos in the face with a baseball bat. Because he is, an ally of the Ryugu Kingdom of Neptune and his children, and he stands beside them as there to protect Shirahoshi, to prevent her from being taken and turned into a slave and everything. We don't see anything else about Milzigard's father. It's probably assumed that he's dead at this point in time. But we don't know. But I just wanted to put in there as another reason to show Milzigard using a bat on Charlos. The next up is technically not actually a biological father-son thing. It is actually, I'm just putting it here because at the time we thought it was real. It's Kinemon and Momonosuke. We, of course, now know that Kinemon is not Momonosuke's father. Momonosuke's father is, of course, Kozuki Oden. But at the time when we are first introduced to them, when we are first introduced to Kinemon, when he's legs, a torso with arms, and a head, all scattered across Punk Hazard, we, of course, learn that he has a son and that he is trying to find his son. And of course, he works with the Straw Hats and everything, and they help him find Momonosuke. And and we don't learn that Kinemon is not Momonosuke's son all the way up until Zou, all the way through Punk Hazard, all the way through Dressrosa, all the way until we get to Zou, and then it's revealed that no, Momonosuke is not actually my son. He is actually the son of Kozuki Oden, who was the rightful shogun of Wano, and Momonosuke is now technically the rightful shogun of Wano because his father is dead. And I'm a member of the Kinemon's. I'm a member of the Nine Red Scabbards. We were sworn vassals of the Kozuki clan, and I was playing up as being Momonosuke's father as a way to help protect him. And of course, very recently in the manga, we just got the slight flashbacks where we had Momonosuke and Kinemon trying to practice, most Momonosuke calling him father, and Kinemon calling him, my son, and Momonosuke not, Momonosuke-sama, calling him, the way that, in Japanese you have the different honorifics and everything, and it has to be, father and son and everything. And of course, by the time we get to Punk Hazard, we see that they have this down very well, because Momonosuke always refers to Kinemon as his father. And of course, we have the moment where they're very happily, finally reunited. And then we have the funny moment where Momonosuke turns into a dragon. Which is just funny to watch. Where did Momonosuke go? Why is there a dragon here? Momonosuke is the dragon! Help! We get all of that. And of course, all the way through Punk Hazard and Dressrosa and into Zou, the first bit of Zou, we think that Kinemon is Momonosuke's father. And that bond is very strong. And I'm not saying, doesn't take away at all from Momonosuke's bond with Oden. Does not take away from that at all. It's just, it was part of their, their cover story that they were going with, that, oh, we need to keep Momonosuke safe, keep his real identity safe. And having Kinemon pretend to be his father in that case works very well. And Kinemon, very much takes that into regard to trying to help Momonosuke be more comfortable around the Straw Hats and everything, and that some pirates can be good. And of course, Kinemon's, only real experience with pirates are either the Whitebeard crew, who, of course, when they left, Oden went with them, or Kaido. And I would say Kaido probably left a stronger impact, because Kinemon and the rest of the 9 Red Scabbards, minus Izo, technically wasn't a 9 Red Scabbard, but because he left before that happened. Yeah. Timeline. But, he had to watch, under the rule of Kaido, watch what happened to the people of Wano during the whole time frame when Kaido ruled over Wano, while Oden was off with Whitebeard, and then off with, Roger. And of course, Kinemon and Momonosuke probably had a fairly good bond by then anyway. But then, he had to protect Momonosuke. Next one, we get to Dressrosa arc, and we have King Riku Dole III, who is the father of Princess Scarlet and Princess Viola, or Violet, whichever one you want to refer to her as. And of course, we see throughout the course of the arc, we get the flashbacks that show how, King Riku, he adored both of his daughters, and even the way that he was kind of a father figure to Kyros. He ended up, of course, being his father-in-law later on, but he was very much a father figure to Kyros, and trying to help him and, get him set up in the Colosseum, and then helping Kyros and everything, and then eventually making Kyros, a member of his daughter's guard. And then, of course, we have the funny bits where it's like, we watch as, Riku and Viola and their mother, who I didn't mention the mother in, in the Mother's Day video, because we don't even know her name. We don't know if she's alive. Probably going to assume that she's dead. Either was killed by Doflamingo or died some other time. But we're going to assume that she's no longer alive. Although I guess she could show back up. But she's not a crucial part of the story. But we have, Riku, and we have Viola watching as, Scarlet and Kyros fall in love and everything. And then, of course, Riku tells Kyros and Scarlet that, I can't just allow you to marry each other. I can't just allow the two of you to, do that, because Scarlet is a princess and technically Kyros is a murderer, even with the fact that he has earned the praise and everything of the people here in Dressrosa. He technically is still a murderer. Scarlet has gotten over this, but we still have Riku doesn't have a problem technically with Kyros and Scarlet being together. He's very supportive of that. He's just he can't do that with the royal family, cannot let that happen. So he basically lets Scarlet fake her own death. And then Scarlet and Kyros go off. And they get to be happy, and they live in the flower field, and they have their little house, and then they have Rebecca. And of course, I'll talk about Riku and Rebecca's relationship a little bit more when I get to the Grandparents' Day video. But we have Riku and Scarlet and Viola. And of course, Riku was probably extremely, extremely distraught when he learned that Scarlet had been killed when the Doflamingo family, when the Don Quixote family attacked, when the pirates attacked, and everything. His daughter died, and even he forgot about his own son-in-law. He, because of Sugar turning him into a toy, he forgot about his own son-in-law, this guy that he had done so much for and everything. And and his daughter died, and he knows that he has a good granddaughter out there, but he can't like fully publicly acknowledge her, even though she's already kind of later on, of course, we know that she ends up being a gladiator. But Riku clearly very much, as we've seen, loves Rebecca, even though he hasn't gotten to spend a lot of time with her in the past 10 years since the Don Quixote family attacked. But we also see Viola's um, devotion to her father, and the fact that she tells Doflamingo that I will work for you if you please don't kill my father or my niece. Please don't do that. I will work for you. I will use my power. And she, of course, becomes a member of the Don Quixote Pirates. She, becomes a member of, I think she's part of the Treble Army. And of course, as they're kind of, she uses her, eye powers and everything, her glare fruit to, spy on everyone and gather information and everything and keep things, keep tabs on everything in Dressrosa. And of course, later on, we have, Viola and Riku work very well to help the Straw Hats and everything in regards to helping the Straw Hats and the Colosseum fighters that would become the Straw Hat Grand Fleet, of course, with all of them working together to help fight against Dressrosa and help fight against to help save Dressrosa and fight against the Don Quixote family. And then, of course, we get to Kiros and Rebecca. Kiros, we see this in the flashbacks that we get with Kiros and Rebecca and Scarlet, that, he always, because he does not think his hands are worthy to touch Rebecca because of the fact that, she is so pure and so innocent and everything, but he is, he's a murderer. And he's done all these horrible things, and he always wears those gloves whenever he touched her, even when she was a baby. And, he loved her, he adored her clearly, and he adored Scarlet, and him and Viola seemed to get along quite a bit, quite well later on. And of course, Riku and Kiros get along quite well. I'm going to assume that the mother was also okay with all of this, because we see her there being supportive. But of course, we get the moment where Kiros has to run to the castle when the Don Quixote pirates attack. He runs to the castle to try to save Riku and everything. And he chops off his own leg in the process, and then he gets turned into the tin soldier, the steadfast tin soldier. And and then he saves Riku anyway, and then he runs and he ends up finding Scarlet, and of course, she doesn't remember him. She doesn't remember who Kiros is. Riku didn't remember who Kiros was. The only remembrance of him was that statue that Riku had built in the Colosseum. And even by the time later on, it's just like, oh, he's a myth, because nobody thinks that was real, because yes, he won 3,000 battles. That's not possible, and everything. And of course, Rebecca looked up to Kiros, looked up to the soldier and everything. And then, of course, we have it that, Rebecca, or Scarlet, unfortunately does die in her husband's arms, unknowing that it's him, and he can't even, he states he can't even feel her go cold. And of course, he rushes to Rebecca and everything, and he despises that he has to do that to her, that he has to show her that he's holding her mother's dead body. He despises that. And then, of course, he watches over Rebecca for the next couple of years. And trains her how to fight, and this tin soldier is brave and true, the song that he always sang to her and everything, because he knows exactly who she is. We see in the flashbacks, and I don't know if they added some of this in or if this was what was in the manga exactly, but we see him working so hard, fishing and all this other stuff that he does to make money to give Rebecca this this little tiny house that she can live in and be safe. And, all, he does, the pedal in the window, every morning I'll drop a pedal in the window to show you that I'm here. And then, when Rebecca gets kidnapped, he saves her from that. And then, of course, he does train her how to fight. And she still has her pacifist nature. I've said enough on pacifism already on this channel. There is a reason to it, but I also understand the point in sometimes you do have to fight. And Rebecca does seem to understand that. She learns that later on. And then, of course, we have the moment when, Usopp knocks, Sugar out, and everybody's memories of, those that got turned into toys come flooding back as, we see all these other parents and children and, families being reunited as they get turned, as, the forgotten family member gets changed back from being a toy. And then, of course, we have Kiros changed back from being a toy and turns into his full-on human self, and he's able to attack and everything. But we have Rebecca in the middle of this final match for the Flame Fruit with Sabo's help, and Bartolomeo's there too and everything, and she's having to deal with Diamante and everything, who she knows killed her mother because he's frickin' told her he did it. And we have that huge fight, and of course that's when that's when all of her memories come flooding back of, how could I forget my father and everything? And of course, Sabo protects her during that part, and he of course gets the devil fruit and everything. But she like has this moment, and we just see these tears streaming down her face of, how could I forget that I have a father? And then, of course, she finds out that, it was the Tin Soldier all along. That Kiros was your father. That it was the Tin Soldier. And then, of course, I'm rewatching through the Dressrosa arc, and I'm just getting to the point, and I'm watching through the Dressrosa arc in English, and of course, it's at the point where, Kiros has made his way to the flower field, and he is, he's there. He's gonna fight Diamante. He's ready to fight Diamante, and him and Rebecca get to see each other for the first time since he got turned back into a human, and she has her memories back of him. And, it's that first time that they get to see each other. And of course, Rebecca thanks Luffy for helping her, for, getting her father back to her and everything. And we, of course, have all the moments there. And of course, we have, Kiros fights Diamante. Rebecca kind of had to fight Diamante, but she more just, she's like, okay, I have to get the key because I have to get the key to Law, and that works great. But of course, she watches her father fight Diamante, and then of course Robin shows up, and Robin helps with fighting Diamante, and helps Kiros in that way. And then, of course, by the end of that match, by the end of that battle, of course, Diamante whacks his head on, Scarlet's grave, which just adds a bit of poetic justice to that, of course. And, we don't know what happened, if Diamante is dead or not. I don't know. We'll find out later. Or never. I don't know. Or it may not be a big problem. But he's gone. He's either in Impel Down now, or he's dead. One of the two. I don't know which I would prefer. I would go with like the impelled or the dead part, because then, Scarlet's the one that got the last whack in on him on the back of his head. And of course we have Robin tells Rebecca, even though Robin got very hurt during that battle, she tells Rebecca, go see your father. And of course they're reunited there. And then of course Kiros, after everything's finished in Dressrosa, everything, the battle and everything is finished and everybody's partying and everything. Rebecca gets the chance of, well, you can become a princess. You can be the princess. You can, take up where your mother had been and everything. And you can have this, this full, this part of that life. And, she's kind of ready to do that. But then, of course, Luffy shows up and, he helps her, escape the palace. And Viola is just like, no, father, I will be the princess. Let Rebecca go and be with her father. Be with Kiros. And, Luffy rushes Rebecca to Kiros. It's at the house on the Flower Hill. And, where her and Scarlet lived. The three of them lived. And, of course, we have Rebecca and Kiros fully reunited. And they get to live together. And she gets to have her dream of wanting to live in the same house with the soldier that was her father the entire time. And yeah, you can tell that they're one of my favorite father-daughter couples in One Piece. Father-child couples, father-child pairs as well. Next one is just one of the other. We had a lot of fathers introduced in Dressrosa. The other one is also a king. He is the Tontada chief, Gancho. He is the father of Princess Mocheri. We're introduced to him near the beginning when they land on Greenbit, and Robin and Usopp are Gulliver's Travel styled, trapped by the Tontatta. Um, and they're there, and of course they interact with him, and it's like, oh no, we're friends, we're good people. Which, yeah, no, the Tontattas are way too trusting. And of course, Gancho and Melcheria, of course, reunited later on. At the end of the arc, they are reunited, and Melcheria likes Leo. We'll see where that goes. The next one is Don Quixote homing. I went over a bit with this between the Mother's Day one with his wife, and the Brother's Day one with Rocinante and Doflamingo. Don Quixote homing was, of course, the celestial dragon that left the upper realm, left Marija with his wife and children, and went to live on this island. I don't think we ever get the name of the island. And again, watching through Dressrosa, so I just saw a bunch of this. Just watched that part of the arc where we get where we watch that part happen, where, he tries to interact with the people, and then they find out that, oh no, they're former celestial dragons, and then of course they attack, and then of course, after his wife dies, he tries to beg the people, just hurt me, don't hurt my boys, hurt me, don't hurt my boys, type of a thing. And of course we know that, Doflamingo, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately from his point of view, but, he does shoot his own father. He kills his own father, and then he takes his father's head back to the celestial dragons. It's like, I brought back the traitor's head. Please let me and my brother come back. And they say no. And of course, Doflamingo escapes, and then of course he uses the information that he has later on, and he becomes the pirate, and then the warlord, and he has all this information on the celestial dragons, because of course he knows the secret that's hidden in Marija, which of course we'll probably find out later. And of course, so homing was the father, is of course Doflamingo and Rocinante. And then of course we're in the flashback we get Law's father. We never get a name on Law's father. We see Law's mother and his sister there as well, and of course his father was a doctor, which of course where Law learned a lot of his doctoring and everything from beforehand. He was quite interested in that. He wanted to follow in his father's footsteps, and of course I just got to watch the Flevens flashback for Law. In regards to that, so we saw that there, and that's disturbing to watch. Law, of course, unfortunately had to see both of his parents, dead, and then he escaped and everything, and then he made his way to the Don Quixote family. The next one, I am going a little out of order but these are all kind of in Dressrosa that these happen. The next one that I have on my list is Senor Pink, who was of course married to Rushin, and they had Gimlet. I went over this a fair amount in the Mother's Day video with Rushin. They had Gimlet, and of course, Senor Pink had lied to Rushin about who he was, that he was a member of the, didn't tell her that he was a member of the Doflamingo Pirates, that he was a pirate, that Don Quixote Pirates, sorry, that he was a pirate, that, that he did all this stuff. He said that he worked at a bank. And then, of course, they have Gimlet, and then, Gimlet gets sick. And I know I mentioned this in the Mother's Day videos as well, that, I guess it's a possibility that Doflamingo found out about Gimlet and about Rushin and didn't like Senor Pink having that outside of the family, that it could take him away from the family. But I don't know where that falls. I would kind of put it on a different level than, like, he always, kills Baby Five's fiancés, but of course her fiancés are just doing it to take advantage of her. Senor Pink clearly very much loved Rushin, so I don't know what happens with that there, if like Doflamingo was involved in that or what. But we have Senor Pink loved Gimlet very much, and then of course Gimlet got very, very sick, and then unfortunately he died, and then of course Rushin fell into a coma because she got into an accident, and she died after she got into an accident after Gimlet died, and she found out that Senor Pink was a pirate, and she screams at him and chews him out for it, and then she gets into an accident, and then she's vegetative state, comatose type thing, and he dresses up as a baby in order to help get her to laugh and get her to smile, and then that's where, that's why he still dresses that way and why that's, continued over the years. And, you know, I don't know if it was Treb. I don't know which one of the executives or Doflamingo said it, but one of them said, why are you dressed that way, Pink? Um, but he's, that's why he's dressed that way. And I don't know if he ever explained it to them or if Doflamingo was just like, let him dress that way. It's fine. I already dress like, the way I do. And, Treble's a giant slime ball and Diamante's got his steel cape and everything. So, let Senor Pink dress the way that he wants. So they might do that. I don't know. Of course, we had that there. The next one is Diaz Barrels, who is the father of Diaz Drake, or X-Drake, who is, of course, a current member of the Worst Generation. He is he's the former Marine and everything that is now technically not a former Marine because he's working for Sword, and he is, currently on, was a member of the Tobi-Roppo on Kaido's crew, but now he's not. He defected, and now he's helping the Straw Hats. And we have actually not seen him for a couple of chapters now that I think about it. I like Drake. I don't want him to die, but I guess we'll see what happens with that. If he dies, I want to know who gets his Allosaurus fruit because I like that. I actually like Allosauruses. But we, of course, are introduced to his father, Diaz Barrels, in the flashback with Law and Rocinante, because he is, of course, the captain of the Barrels Pirates. Diaz Barrels was a Marine, and then he supposedly learned something that he did not like about the Marines, and he defected. He was a Marine still when Drake was a child, because we have Drake in a little Marines outfit when he's a kid and looks very happy. And then, of course, Diaz Barrels is an extremely abusive father to Drake, or Drory, I think is what they called him. During during the flashback, they kept calling him that. And of course, Drake escapes as one of the only people to survive the birdcage, because he escapes onto the other side of the birdcage before it activates. And he escapes there. We don't know if he already had his devil fruit or not, or if he got his devil fruit while he was in the Marines. We don't know, but he, of course, went on to become a Marine. And, of course, we have that parallel there of, his father was a Marine, became a pirate, and then he died because of, he was killed by Doflamingo. And then, of course, we have, Diaz, Drake was a Marine. I think he made his way all the way up to a rear admiral, if I remember correctly. If I have that wrong, I apologize. But he made it pretty far up, and then he defected, and he's a traitor, became Red Flag Drake, and he leaves, and he becomes a pirate, and he has the Drake Pirates, and of course they, make their way to the Grand Line, and then, he, infiltrates Kaido's crew and everything, but we find, he joins Kaido's crew and becomes a member of the Tobi-Roppo, and then, of course, we learn that he is in actuality a member of Sword. And that he is actually working with Koby. And we don't know any other members of Sword. Sengoku might be part of that. Garp might be part of that. Helmeppo might be part of that. But we don't know, who else is a member of Sword besides, Koby and Drake. Next up is kind of still going in the Dressrosa arc. Next up, still going in the Dressrosa arc, is Sengoku and Rocinante. Because we see in the flashback, we see that via Rocinate's flashback to a degree, we see that when he was a child, he was found by Sengoku. Probably showing up sometime after, Doflamingo and Rocinante were separated. Doflamingo may have already gone off and tried to get their father, take their father's head back to Morijo at this point in time, but Sengoku finds Rocinante, and Sengoku then, spends the next however many years that was, 20-some years or whatever, raising Rocinante. And, Rocinante becomes a Marine, and he makes his way up through the ranks, and then, of course, he goes and he's undercover, and he goes and finds the Del Quixote family, he finds his brother, and he, joins the pirates under the Corazon seat as an executive, and he has, I think it's was it the Nagi or whatever it was, I don't remember what it was. Nagi is a snake. I don't know why I said that. It's whatever the calm or the hush fruit, whatever that one was. He has that. And of course he uses that. And we're assuming that he got that power either as a Marine or he ate a devil fruit when he was a child, and then Sengoku found him that way. Um, but of course, we have that. And I have seen adorable fan art of like what would have happened if both Roshinate and Doflamingo had been raised by Sengoku as Marines. And like they get Sengoku there, and then they have like Suru there, and like Suru is just like patting Doflamingo on the head. He's like just patting him on the head, like, good boy. I want to know what world that was in. In what world did Doflamingo did that happen? What world did were like both like Doflamingo and Roshinate found by like Sengoku and then like raised by the Marines? And like, like maybe he still got his same powers, and like maybe the Doflamingo family came with him, like when they were still kids, they still found them, and then they still got that way. That would be a very interesting thing. That'd be a very interesting like. What would have happened with that? Like a what if thing there. That would be fun. Like, what if they were both raised there? And then like of course, we of course have the moment where Law and Sengoku end up talking near the end of the Dressrosa arc, because Law and Sengoku end up talking, and that as I put Law and Roshinate in kind of the brothers category, because I'm like, I don't, not so much father son. I would put them in the brothers category when I did that. I mean, I think the age difference is big enough that Roshinate could be old enough to be Law's father, but Law had a very good relationship with his own father, so I didn't really want to do that. Although Roshinate seemed very happy with Dahoming, but his father's very much dead, and Roshinate at that age did need someone, and that's where Sengoku came in. And of course, Law and Sengoku end up talking, and of course, we get in the flashbacks, we see the similarities between Sengoku and Roshinate. They're both a little bit clumsy at times. Well, Roshinate is very clumsy at times, but Sengoku's a little clumsy at times. He better not get clumsy when he's in his giant Buddha form, though, because that would not go well. Giant, his Buddha punch, and then he trips. And well, that didn't go so well. Marineford has a new crater. Anybody want to build a koi pond? Whatever the case there. But Roshinate, Law, and Sengoku end up talking, and of course we get the flashback of Sengoku being devastated when he finds out that Roshinate is dead, because Roshinate went after the Op fruit to get that for Law, and I don't think Sengoku holds anything against Law for the fact that Roshinate died. Because, Law was a child at that time, and he was a sick child, and I don't think Sengoku ever held anything against Law for that. Given the conversation we see them have, from what I remember from the manga, and of course when I get to that in the anime, I don't think that I don't see animosity there in regards to that. And I think that down the line, like when everything is said and done, when like whatever final battle is finished or whatever, or if at one point, like if the Straw Hats have to work with the Marines at some point, and like if Law is part of that group still with the Straw Hats, because I don't want Law to die either. But like, Law, if like Law and Sengoku end up, talking again, like if the Marines and the Straw Hats do have to work together against the Blackbeard pirates for, whatever reason, but like they have to work together, and like Law and Sengoku end up talking, and they just sit and they reminisce about Roshinate. I would like that. Sengoku tells Law like funny stories about like when Roshinate was growing up and when he was learning how to use his powers, and like all this other stuff, like all this fun stuff that they did while they were training with his powers, and like Law tells him the funny stuff that Roshinate did while they were traveling and everything. How many hospitals Roshinate set on fire for Law's sake, and then all those other things that happened there. And he's like, well, how'd you guys meet? Well, he threw me out the window and into a junk pile. I know now is trying to make me leave the family so I wouldn't, get killed, but, in the end it ended up helping, so Sengoku, yeah, Roshinate was never the best with children anyway. he was around too many adults. Um, but like I just like that image of like they just sit and talk at some point. You know, they eat rice crackers and cookies. They do that. Let's see here. Next on my list, we are going to get into okay, now I got whole cake. So we got two whole cake fathers, and then we got, I think it's four fathers from Wano, and then we'll be all finished. So we're going to do the two whole cake fathers. The first father that we are technically introduced to in Whole Cake is Capone Gang Beige, who is, of course, married to Lola. Wrong. Chiffon. Sorry. Is married to Chiffon. And she is, of course, the twin sister of Lola, who we met back on Thriller Bark, and this is where we feel, no, she's Big Mom's daughter. Yeah. But we have them, and Capone and Chiffon have Pez, Capone Pez, who has had two different variation colors in the anime. He had like his first appearance, he has like black coloration, like black hair and like black outfit like his dad. But then in like other colorations, when we see him a little more involved in the story later, he's more, you know, he's got the more pastel colors, a little bit closer to like what his mom dresses in. And Capone adores Pez. It is adorable. He's just like, who's such a good little baby. He's so cute and so strong and so smart and everything. He just adores his kid. And, you know, we get a couple of awesome moments with Capone where he's, you know, where, you know, he turns into the giant, you know, his big father castle mode and is fighting that way and everything. And he's, you know, when, you know, him and Pez show up to, you know, save Chiffon from, you know, from, Oven. Save, Chiffon from Oven and everything, and you know Sanji helps with that, and he shows up and he's got Pez on one arm and he's got his gun in the other and he's firing that and everything. So we get that. You know, they're just great. And then of course we got the Beige Oh My Family story, the cover story there, which was fun. And of course they find Lola and the Rolling Pirates, and they end up, Lola and Gotti end up together, and of course now, Gotti is now Pez's uncle, and, Capone's brother-in-law. So we got that. And of course the other father that of course goes along with them is of course Pound, who is of course the biological father of Lola and Chiffon. Pound was of course, was he husband number, I want to say 28, but I could be wrong on that number. Insert whatever number, I don't remember. I don't really care. But he was, whatever number husband that, Big Mom had. And they had Lola and Chiffon, and he's kicked out almost as soon as they are born. They're healthy, they're good. Okay, bye. Kicks him out, and then he goes and lives in the forest, buried up to his neck like a carrot for the next 28 years or whatever it was. However old the two girls are. And then, of course, he very much wants to find out, he wants to find Lola, he wants to find Chiffon. He had heard that Lola had left several years ago, and, he begs and begs and begs. And, of course, he helps Nami and Luffy and everything, and they, he becomes their ally with that. And then, of course, they eventually, Pound shows up and he's trying to help Chiffon a bit. And he, we thought he got killed by Oven, and he does this, great inner monologue to, Chiffon, that he's so happy that he got to see her, and that she looks happy, and that she got married and everything. And that's actually the quote that I have for the end of this video. And we have that. And then, of course, we think that Pound died. And then, of course, during the Oh My Family arc, cover page arc, we learn that, no, he's fine. It looks like he's about to get decapitated by Oven the last time we see him. He survives. And he, then makes his, ends up, on his way to Dressrosa on a tart. And, ends up there. And then, of course, he's found. And they're all reunited. And then they escape. And then there's the whole wedding. And he gets to see, he didn't get to see Chiffon's wedding. But he gets to see Lola's wedding. Time for Wano fathers. So, as I mentioned, we technically learn about, Oden being, Momo's father, in the Zou arc. And then, so I'm going to talk about Oden last, though, because I want to end on a good father. So the, kind of the other first father that we're introduced to during the Wano arc is Shimosuke Yasue, who we learned recently is the adoptive father of Toko, or Otoko. Otoko is a girl that is kind of a courtesan in training. She is the closest friend to Hiyori, who, of course, Kumurasagi. Find out she's Hiyori, of course. And she is her closest friend, and I would probably say they have somewhere of a bond of like sisters that go with that. But we introduce Yasue via, Zoro meeting him, and Yasue is like a male version of a geisha, and that's fun to watch. I do like Yasue. And of course, we learn more about his history. We learned, that he's one of the former daimyos of Wano. He was a friend of Odin's. He was, he's one of the ones that gave the scabbards a kick in the pants to get their act together to be a little more helpful to Odin. So we have that. We have those flashbacks, and then of course we learned that after everything happened with Orochi and Kaido and all of that. All the other daimyos are either dead or, in Yasuie's case, kind of on the run. Although now Yasuie is dead, but yeah. But Yasue, we find out that he adopted Otoko when she was a baby, and as far as she's concerned, he is her biological father because she doesn't know otherwise. But Yasue is, called the saint of Ebisu Town. And he is unfortunately the one that, brought them all of the smiles that were, already bitten into and everything. And they can't turn you into anything, but it kept them from starving. And he always has the big smile on his face, even though he never ate a smile. He still has the big smile to keep everybody happy. And then, of course, he took the blame and said, no, I'm the one that, made all those, those flyers for the Kozuki clan and everything. I'm the one that made that up and everything. No, it's, don't, it was a joke. It was a joke to mess with Orochi and everything. And then, of course, he is unfortunately assassinated by Orochi. And of course, we have, unfortunately, Otoko sees this, and of course, Zoro gets extremely angry about this, as, Hiyori is devastated by this, because she's probably known Yasue for a while. Also, he's Toko's father, and she very much adores Toko. And, actually, I was trying to think, we know Toko is not a smile user. We know that she doesn't have any like animal type things that obviously make it that she's a smile user. But I'm pretty sure she's eaten a smile, which is why she doesn't like start, she starts crying and everything when Yasue dies, as we see with the other people in Ebisu Town and everything, and this makes Zoro very angry. It was like, well, why are they laughing and everything? And that's when, of course, Hiyori explains to them, it's not that, it's because of Kaido and Orochi and because of the smiles. It takes away their ability to have any form of emotion other than smiling, and the only way they can cry is if they laugh so hard that they cry. And Otoko, unfortunately, seems to have that same affliction, because the entire time that we see her, as far as I can remember, all we do is see her smiling again and again and again. And, and even when, like, Yasue died and she's in front of him after he's been shot at the prisoner gallery and everything where he was executed, she runs over to him and she's like, come on, Daddy, wake up, wake up, wake up. And it's the Lion King moment all over again. It's he's not waking up. I'm sorry, Otoko. And of course we have the moment where she's like, I bought this glue or this miracle stuff from the street vendor, and Usopp's in the background like, oh God, please don't. And he's like, okay, maybe I need to be a little more careful with the lies that I spew as a snake oil salesman or a toad oil salesman. And actually, in the most recent chapter when I'm recording this, we got the cut back to Wano, the mainland Wano, where we had, in the flower capital, where we had, I think it's Tengo Yamahitatsu has Toko with him, because of course Tama is currently on Onigashima with Nami and Usopp, but Tengo Yamahitatsu is looking after Toko at the moment. And they go into the flower capital, and they're looking up at the sky and everything. And I think she asks, "Do you think that my my dad's looking down on us now. And he goes like, I am very certain that your father is looking down on you right now and smiling on you. And is hopefully going to be smiling on all of us when everything is finished with Kaido and Orochi and when we can all be free. So we get that moment there. I know it's not a Lion King reference to, like, the kings of our past are looking down on us, but, Yasuie, was a daimyo of Wano. He was one of the most powerful men in Wano for the time frame for back when Oden was around and everything. So, he also kind of seemed to be a little bit of a father figure to Oden and of himself. Well, maybe more of a father figure than Oden's father. Speaking of Sakeyuki, speaking of that, of Kozuki Sukeyaki, I'll get the name right eventually. We have him. He is, of course, the former shogun of Wano. He is the father of Kozuki Oden, and by default the grandfather of Momo and Hiyori, although I'm very certain that he died long before they were born, unfortunately, or that they were even back in Wano, because, he may have died while they were gone, but, we when we first get the Oden flashback, we have it that, Sukeyaki is there talking with his, butler type guy, and, they're listing off all the things that Oden has done, all these different, throwing his wet nurse, and he did this, and he caught 2 rabbits, and he, did this Haremore, and then he did this, and then he did that, and he moved the river into the flower capital, and just all this other stuff that he did. Which is just funny. It's like Hercules Labors, Oda edition, Oden edition. Kind of both. Oda, Oden edition. But of course he disowns, Sakeyuki disowns Oden. And, he's like, you're disowned from the family, you're banned from the flower capital type of a thing. I don't ever, you're a disgrace to the family, so leave. And Oden does. He leaves, and he has Denjiro and he has Kinemon that are now following him, and then of course he travels around Wano, and he, gathers up, Raizo, yay! Well, Shinobu comes later because she's technically not a scabbard. Izo and, Kiku, yay! And Oden's kind of like a father to those two as well, to a degree, but I'll go over that later. And of course, he gathers up the rest of the scabbards. Kanjuro, leave him to die in the woods after you slice his head off. Yeah, as I said, I'm watching Dressrosa right now, and it's just like, every time I see Kanjuro, I'm like, throw him off the cliff, throw him off the cliff, throw him off the cliff, stab him, stab him, stab him. Just kill him now and help yourself. Trust me, it'll be worth it. It will be worth it. And, so we have those moments and everything, and of course we have Oden interacts with, Yasuie and everything. And, then years later, after Oden has kind of tamed the Kuri region and become the daimyo of, become the ruler of Kuri, his father then names him the daimyo of Kuri, and they all travel to the capital. And I kind of think the last time, I don't remember if they state specifically when the last time is that Oden gets to see his father, but they interact, and it seems to be much better. His father has kind of undisowned him and is like, okay, I'm glad that you're better. I'm glad that you're happy. You're my son again. You're my heir again to a degree and everything. And of course, we know that Orochi, messes with that and everything by using the fake, Sukeyaki, who, was, the psychotic old lady, Higurashi. We know that. But of course, we have, those moments there, and it is very, we get kind of that father-son thing again, where it's like they kind of get to mend their bond a little bit. And of course, Oden goes off, and then he joins the Whitebeard Pirates, but I'll get back to Oden in a minute. But first we're going to talk about Kaido and Yamato. So we found out very, very late in the game, quite a ways into the Wano arc itself, that Kaido has a son. And, we learned that his name is Yamato. And, Kaido, once, was like, I want my son, bring me my son, find me my son. And, we have the thing where it's just like, okay, is his son alive? Is his son dead? Who's his son? Is that why Kaido drinks so much? Because his son's dead, and he drinks to forget that his son's dead, and gets so drunk that he thinks his son's still alive, and then, the Toby Roppo and the rest of the Beast Pirates have to play along with it and everything. I was like, oh yes, we'll go find him. And then we meet Yamato because he shows up in Wax Ulti with a giant, Kanabo like his father has. And then we find out that no, Kaido is not pretending he has a son. And we get, the whole moment where it's revealed that, oh no, his son actually is, a big Kozuki Oden fan, and has, had Kozuki's, has had Oden's logbook for the past 20 years, and, idolizes him, and that he knew Ace, and then he, removes the costume that he wears, the mask and everything, and it's just like, oh my, Luffy, oh my god, you're a girl. And then Yamato's like, well, I identify as Kozuki Oden, so that's what I am. And he was a guy, so I'm a guy. And Luffy's just like, okay, that's fine. We'll see if that's going to be something that stays the entire time. Because we've had, Okiku has stated this, that Okiku is a woman at heart, therefore we refer to Okiku as a she. At the moment, we can refer to Yamato as either they or he, depending on the context. I'm trying to do better at making sure that I use the right pronouns in regards to that, and if I slip up at some point, I apologize. But this is also coming out during Gay Pride Month, so right in the middle of all those other gay pride couple videos that I'm doing. But of course, Yamato is working alongside Luffy and the Straw Hats and the Scabbards, and protected Momo for quite a while and everything. And of course, in in the last few chapters, we had it that Yamato got to the roof and showed up, and Yamato was about to fight their father, and Yamato always refers to as Kaido, not as father, as Kaido, not father, and that this seems to make Kaido angry. And Kaido is definitely one of the very, very bad fathers, I would say, in this, because at the very least, when it came to Big Mom, most of her children, she did not seem to physically abuse them. She physically abused Chiffon. I'm not saying she didn't. And she quite obviously mentally abused Pudding in regards to Pudding's eye, but she doesn't seem to go around just willy-nilly beating her children. Kaido seems to have done that with Yamato quite a bit, because Yamato stated that, Kaido used to just, beat me until I had so many broken bones and was just black and blue and, almost dead, but he wouldn't kill me because, I'm his son. And, okay, I will give Kaido, Kaido gets 1 billion points of negative for being that bad of a father. He gets maybe 5 points of positive in regards to the fact of, Yamato is clearly born a girl and has, Kaido would have known that because we don't know anything about Yamato's mother. As I said in the, the Mother's Day video, could be Big Mom, could not be, could be someone else, we don't know. I don't think it's Black Maria, because I don't think Black Maria was stated to be that old. To the point where Black Maria would have been able to have been Yamato's mother. And even then, the Toby Roppo may not have been around at that point in time. We know that the Calamities were back then, but we don't know about if, Black Maria and the Toby Roppo were. They seem to be on the younger side. But, we have the moment where, obviously Kaido does refer to Yamato as his son. And there's all the memes or the funny bits of Yamato going, or Kaido yelling at Yamato going, you are my daughter and you will be what I want you to. Son. Huh? I'm your son. You're my son and you will do what I want you to. It's okay, you get maybe 5 points for that. For at the very least going with that and sticking with the fact that Yamato wants to be referred to as a male. Or it could have just been that Kaido, because Yamato was the only child that he had, he just raised Yamato as male. That's 2. Okay, and moving on from bad father to let's end on a good father. Because I didn't get to do that in the last video, so we'll do that on this video. So, in this one, we of course have Kozuki Oden. He is the biological father of Momo and Hiyori, and he is kind of the closest thing to a father that Izo and Okiku and several of the other scabbards had. Now, Izo and Okiku did have a biological father. He was the owner or the instructor of like a dance studio or something like that, or a dance school, not studio, school that they had. And then, of course, he ended up, he supposedly died, and that's why Izo and Kiku are on their own. Kiku Nojo are on their own. And, of course, they ended up joining Oden and Oden and the rest of the 9 red scabbards. So we have, all of them together. And then, of course, when Oden leaves, when he, hangs onto the back of, the Whitebeard pirate ship for 3 days with, Izo there with him, although Izo got brought onto the ship. We know, that, Oden met, Toki, and then they had Momonosuke first, and he seemed extremely happy with Momonosuke, very, very proud of him and everything. And then, 2 years later, they had Hiyori because canonically, if Momo had not jumped forward in time, he would be 28, and Hiyori is 26. And we have, that moment there, and, they got to, live on Whitebeard's ship for a while, and then they lived on Roger's ship for a while, and that was just funny of, like, seeing Roger and Rayleigh holding the little ones. He's like, they're so cute. And then they were on that ship for a while. And of course, we see them like go up and they get to go to Skypiea and everything. The 2 little ones got to go to Skypiea. And then, Oden seemed to be extremely happy with his children. He loved Hiyori very much. He loved Momo very much. He was, very encouraging of them and everything. Although he did sometimes make Hiyori cry, if I remember correctly, because at one point he asked her, it's like, "Aw, that song is beautiful. Will you play it at my funeral?" "Daddy, please don't die." Like Hiyori crying, or like Oden asking Momonosuke, "Well, what kind of girls do you like?" And Rayleigh's like, "That is completely inappropriate. He's like 6." Like all those moments where it's just like, good parent, Oden, put the baby down, type thing, type thing. And of course, then they have to leave Toki and the younger ones on back on Wano when they're on their way to Laugh Tale because Toki gets sick. And of course, they stay there and they see the scabbards again. And then, Oden leaves again and goes off and he helps with finding, Laugh Tale and everything. And they do that and they find out the real history of the world. They find out what's on Laugh Tale. They find out that they're too early. And then, of course, they all split, they drop them off at Wano. And then they all, the rest of the Rogers Pirates split up. And of course, Oden comes back and he gets to be, the father again. He has Toki there and he has Hiyori and Momo there, and the 4 of them are very happy, and he has his scabbards there, and he finds out that, oh, well, your father died, and he named Orochi Shogun. And then, of course, then, Oden goes and he, attacks, Orochi and everything, and then he finds out that he can't kill Orochi and blah, 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 blah for reasons, the old guy, and the old guy, Senimaru, I think was his name. We of course find out about them, and and then Oden then dances naked in the street for 2 years or however many years that he does that, and then of course then he goes and he fights Kaido. Him and the scabbards go and they go to fight Kaido. And of course, he does, he very amazingly, is able to, actually wound Kaido with, Enma and Ami no Habakiri. He's able to wound Kaido and actually cause Kaido a lot of pain. And then, of course, he's captured. And then, of course, we have the Hour of Miracles, or the whatever, the legendary hour, whatever it's called, where he stands in the boiling oil with the the slab of wood over his head with all the scabbards on top of it, and he stands there and he survives, and the scabbards go free, but then he still gets shot by Kaido. And we kind of have I can see why Momo has a bit of a problem to a degree with being able to, stand up to his father. Not stand up to his father, but live up to his father's image. Because, you know, Momo grew up on all of these stories from the Scabbards and from Toki and everything about, all this stuff that your father did when he was a child, all these different, the butler guy is even with them, so he knows a lot of stuff that, Odin did as a child and everything. The rabbits and the river and like all this other stuff that he's done all the way up until he was like 18 years old or whatever the case was. And, you know, and, you know, Momo and Hiyori grow up hearing all of these stories, and then of course when Kaido shows up to, when he's holding Momo over the side, over the side of the building, out of Odin Castle, he's ready to drop him, and Momo is scared, and I don't blame him in the slightest. The man that he knows just probably killed his father is holding him over the balcony of a flaming freaking building, and I don't blame Momo at all for being scared. But we see through the course of Punk Hazard and then through Zoe, well, technically not through the Dressrosa arc because we don't get to see Momo too much through the Dressrosa arc beyond at the beginning of it with Nami and Chopper and Brook on the ship. And Sanji shows up and then they leave, and then it's Zoe and everything. And of course, even now through, all the way up through, the Wano arc through until when he's, captured by, Kanjuro again. Throw him off of a cliff, drown him, knock him off the side of the effing elephant, and make sure you take his brush with him and shave his head so he can't do anything else and he will drown. And then you can have, Zunisha step on him, and then you can take his fruit and give it to Usopp or someone else that can draw better. Or is, not going to pretend that they're on your side. But of course, we have that moment and everything, and of course, Momonosuke is getting better. He's trying to fight back. He's trying to feel more. He wants to be able to live up to his father's image, and of course, now he's got Odin's logbook, and he's able to read through that and everything, and see other things that his father did, more through his father's own eyes as opposed to just through the stories and the unbelievable tales from the Scabbards. So, we'll see how that goes. But of course, Momonosuke, when Kaido had him again at the festival, at the fire festival, whatever it was called, the fire celebration that they're having, the party and everything, when he has him, captured and everything, and he's like, tell me your name, tell me you're not the son of Kazuki, and tell me you're just some random street kid that, that Orochi grabbed, and I'll let you go, and we won't even worry about this. And Momo says, no, I am Kozuki Momonosuke. I am the son of Kozuki Odin, and I will be the Shogun of Wano. And, that's his goal now. He wants to become the Shogun of Wano. And, he's, now he's got the voice of all things because he's, communicating with Luffy and everything. We saw that. And of course, we see a bunch of this other stuff that hopefully Momo is going to get stronger and stronger, and he's got his dragon shifting powers and everything. We'll see what happens with that. They're artificial, but we'll see what happens with that. And of course, we'll see what else happens with Hiyori. We'll see what else happens with Hiyori there and everything, and maybe Hiyori was the figure that we saw, because in the recent stuff in the anime with the flashbacks, we saw that Toki did get fatally shot and could be dead, but we don't know yet. So, but I would definitely put, Odin in there as a very, very good father. Maybe a little reckless at times, but a good father. And I think Momonosuke is going to be able to do much better at being able to live up to him. He'll have, whatever Scabbards survive. I hope some of them do. Don't know about Kinemon and Kiku at the moment, or Ashura Doji, but we'll see who else. I want some of them to survive so that Momo's not on his own with just Hiyori, and like maybe Shinobu, but like other people that knew his father that can help him. And of course, even though he's got the logbook now, it's still not quite the same thing. Admittedly, I'm sure some of the, a lot of the Scabbards looked at, Odin through a rose-colored lenses type thing. So it was like, Denjiro and, Kanema, he could do no wrong, Neku and, Inarashi, oh, he could do no wrong. Oden could do no wrong. He was amazing and everything. But we'll see what else happens with that. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully Momo is able to live up to his father's legacy. And yeah, Kaido, bad father. Oden, good father. I kind of like that a fair number of the fathers that I got to talk about on this list were pretty good. Compound's good, Pound's good. Yasuge was definitely a good father. Sukeyaki, he could be better. I would definitely say that Senor Pink was a good father. He loved Gimlet. Don Quixote Humming, good father, didn't think things through very well. Kiros, Riku, very good fathers. The Tontada Chief, from the bit that we see, he loves his daughter, seems good. Law's father, good father. Sengoku, very good father, figure to Roshinate. Diaz Barrel, not a good father to Drake. Neptune, very good father to his children. Kinemon, good cover, undercover story type, father from Momonosuke. Pons Fry, very much good father to Lily. And then, of course, I mentioned Zephyr in there as well, Zed. He had his children. So that's what I have. I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And again, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, or the father figures. Please remember to tell your father or father figure or your grandfather or whatever the case may be, happy Father's Day. And I hope you all have a nice rest of your day. Bye.
Chiffon, I am glad I could see you again one last time, to be able to see you happy just once in my life. I have been worried about you all this time. Have you suffered any hardship? Do you ever feel lonely? I am sorry for not being there for you during such hard times, Chiffon. It's a bit late, but I want to tell you congratulations on your marriage.